Hi, this is Cindy
And Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and I think we got things up and running, although looks like I'm on a bit of a delay on our end here, so we'll try to be patient with us as things go. Our end keeps buffering, so if you guys can just let me know that you can hear me, that'd be
You got
awesome.
Bandana Grandma.
Hi, Bandana Grandma and Curie and Tina
Big
and
Bear.
your mom and Big Bear. Hello, hello. We just barely made it on for this to put this together tonight.
And
So,
Tina and Carrie.
oh, wow. So we got a number of people in here today. That's awesome. I kind of definitely threw this together very, very quickly tonight because we got home at 7:30.
Yeah, right around, there just a few minutes before.
Tina can gear us. I love the typo. No, I understood, but yeah, we had a lot of fun. We just got back from Homesteaders America conference at 7:30 tonight, maybe a little before that, 7:15 or so, because the sun wasn't quite down yet, and I almost called her Jello again. Oh my goodness, I've been doing that all weekend. Puddin', we got her out for a walk. She was super happy to see us. She was a little bit freaked out over the weekend. And our poor house sitter um, was having allergies, and Puddin' was freaking out and worried about her. So she was happy to see us.
Yep. So it looks like we're running about 25 seconds delayed. So we got a pretty long delay today.
Yeah.
At least on it returning back to us.
Yeah, and it does. Well, it looks like we're not buffering our on our end. I watch it through our channel just to see what you guys are seeing here. So
Oh yeah, we helped put down the tent.
yeah,
That was easy. We do the tent a few times a week, at least once a week with markets.
yes,
And I can tell you, our first week setting up market was a little slower because you're trying to position everything. Now we put out a huge amount of product in
yeah,
30 to 40 minutes. We go from a carload to the tents up, multiple tables,
yeah.
tablecloths, all slicked out,
Once a week at
tags.
least.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it becomes pretty regular business. But
yeah,
yeah, the first time those tents are pretty.
yeah.
And each one's a little different.
And
So
your mom got our t-shirts, and I think anybody who ordered them
we just picked up our t-shirts. They
should
didn't
have
make it to Hootenanny.
a hootenanny
I mean,
Homesteaders.
Homesteaders, yeah. Homesteaders.
Yeah, no, they didn't make it to Homesteaders America because they arrived here, I think, on Friday. It looked like from my emails and tracking, and we left on Thursday. But we're off by 2 days, I think, on that delivery. Oh well, I was having a little trouble with the back pattern and making sure it would work on a
Tents,
t-shirt.
yeah.
Yes.
Bandana Grandma. They're all pretty similar. Some are made to a lot better quality. We happen to buy one. We're a
From Costco.
Costco member.
Yeah.
Sam's Club's usually similar.
Yeah.
They had one. I don't know. It's getting late in the season, or you might check online. They had one that was right around $200, and it came. So how strong it is, how easy it is to set up.
It's a pretty strong one.
Ours is quite strong, and it came with all four side flaps and zip ups.
Removable
They're
flaps.
all Velcro on, so it's really about how strong and how easy it is to set up or tear on and off the sides. We're really happy with ours. Ours is I could tell you the name of it.
He's an imposter. He has no baseball cap on. Actually, he's in his PJs.
Yeah, it's the same pair as mine.
Yeah.
Sometimes it depends on what I'm doing. A lot of times I'm making pasta or cleaning.
Yeah.
So when I'm doing that, I'm wearing a hat. So if I'm wearing a hat all day of some sort, whether I change it or not, I put a hat on up here because my ears play a mess. Today, I guess we showered and drove all day.
Yeah, so we sat in a car all day until we got home. I
don't remember what it's bugging me now. Oh, I'll check in the garage, but we farmed everything out this weekend for both of our markets we're operating, and we had people handling them for us, which was a first. First to have people doing the markets, and they're people that regularly work with us and know what's going on.
But with us not being there.
Not being there, so I guess it was one of the first times in our lives we actually made a little bit of money while
not being there,
not doing anything.
Well, we were on vacation,
so that was kind of.
So hopefully it went well.
Yeah, so I think we had moderate. It's a little it's a little cold and it's late in the fall, so sales are a little bit lower this time of year, but I think they did just fine. So, but I was gonna say ours is like pro something, but I can't pop in the garage to tell you what it is. So there's lots of good tents. Look at the reviews. I just know that whatever we have, we
We
really
like.
we like it because it's easy and it's good quality.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and we've popped it up.
It's a little heavier duty than some of the ones.
Yeah, I mean, we between the end of last season and this season, we've probably put it up 40 or 50 times.
Yeah.
And it's hanging in there pretty good. I'm about to spray it down with waterproof, which I need to remember to buy because we're getting a few drips through the top where there's just where it's been crimped a lot.
Yeah.
So I need to put a little tint proof, but that's normal.
That's easy. You just get some waterproofing spray that you use for your boots and put them and tent spray.
So we'll do that. Yeah. But anyways, for those of you doing markets and outdoor events, God, they're so much easier than and we hang them off of cinder blocks.
Yeah, we put tie the corners down onto cinder blocks.
They're not the, you know, I've seen people use weights, chunks of metal. Obviously, if you fill buckets with water or sand, that's especially water because you can refill them if you get a long ways to go. We use cinder blocks because you can tie around them easily, and they're really cheap. They're $1 a piece.
Yeah.
They're a little ugly, but and we hang them on. If it's really windy, we hang them with a cord that hangs down on an angle, so it's actually tensioning it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Are we far enough into our Hogue culture to gauge results? We've been using it for 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think it's...
I think it's doing pretty well. I need to add more mulch to the top before we hit winter here. I mean, it depends on what you want to grow. So far, the first year, it doesn't have a lot of nitrogen in it because the wood's just starting to break down. And I think it's still breaking down a little bit this year. So I think it'll start releasing more nitrogen next year. But things that I found grew very well in there. My garlic's taken off. Potatoes are kind of fun to put in there because you don't have to reach down to dig. They're up higher to get them out.
And some mustard greens. Some herbs.
Yeah, and I think I'll put more herbs in there this year. We had some thyme and some rosemary. Last year, our eggplant did really well at the top of the bed because the top of the bed is the least moist. But as you go down the sides, it's more moist as you go down. So you can actually get these like microclimates on the Hogue culture, which is kind of interesting. You have your sunny sides, your shady sides, so you can kind of gauge the microclimate by that. So you just find where things like to grow on that bed.
And Justin Rhodes he was having a discussion on Hogue culture a few months ago. The only thing he pointed out, they work great in the long term, and I think Mike Hogue even more so, who is with Lily House locally. They're both fans of them, but they say watch out because you can get dead points because if you have a lot of green chipped up stuff that it actually absorbs the nitrogen and captures it. Initially. So you could have it good for a first year and it could go dead for a year or two where it's difficult. But
then come back.
But in the long run, it's going to come back. So they just said, be careful, test it the first few years and hang on while it's adjusting, and then you'll be fine in the end regardless.
Yeah. It's actually the first year has the least amount of nitrogen because it's just starting, the wood is all starting to break down. It's actually absorbing some of that.
And that has a lot to do with if you grind enough of these really small gauge twigs and sticks and get the right amount. That's the same issue if you're doing Back to Eden and people if you get really green wood that was chipped and the big chips instead of the stuff that's 2 inches and under, that stuff is notorious in flower beds and gardens to suck the nitrogen out of the soil initially because it's still green and pulling it in, it's sort of still alive,
but then it slowly releases it after that. So it's more of a long-term project. So first 2 years I'd say work well, but it is still the beginning, so I won't make any judgment call on it. But we have grown herbs. Tomato this year was growing off the side of it and actually doing well, although that would be hard to stake out of it was basically growing down the slope. So that would be a little bit harder. I don't think I'll put that back there, but my eggplants at the top did well last year. I might do that again. Long dead fill. Yeah,
that helps. Yes.
No, it's not actually. I think you do. Well, it might help a little bit to have a mixture.
Yeah. Oh, if they're long dead filled with bugs, they're a little too far gone.
And you want to watch the bugs. You want a mixture. We had some that had some mushroom growth started on it, so they were longer dead, and we had some greenwood. So I think it's really about the mixture that you have in there. you want some more, and you want to add green material to it too. So we had all the wood material, sticks even down to leaves and smaller material, and then I added my chicken compost over it. So that did help with our nitrogen the initial year as well. So you do want to add some green material, and then we put the topsoil back on top of it. So I think, I'll hold out a year or two before I make final judgments on it, but we're probably going to build another one.
Yeah, ours isn't huge. We may. So the question
go
back,
bigger.
did we go? Yeah, Cindy went down. She did the whole thing.
I did all
she
by
went
hand.
almost 18 inches to almost 2 feet down below surface, which is really needed because you want to trap the water.
Yeah.
So if at all possible, dig it. I think if we do the next one, we might bring in equipment to do it. That would be ideal if you could.
Yeah.
Digging a 2-foot deep trench is a lot easier with some scoops or some shovelfuls.
I did it's about 25 feet long and about 3 feet wide. The trench was. Yeah. And then, of course, as you build this thing on top of it, it actually goes a little bit wider than your footprint.
You're 3 or 4 feet wide.
So
we hit sand within a foot. We hit pure beach sand. So we could go down deeper, but if we go much further down, we're not really recapturing good soil to bring up. Yeah. So yeah, and the biggest logs you could have fresh or you could have older, but you want to have them intact enough, like say probably within 5 years or less on big logs, because you want super long breakdown so that you're getting your 5, 10 or something 20-year Hogue use. So if you've got something that's really starting to decay, that's your
it might be a little
mass, the whole thing could collapse, and you may only get a few years use inside of nutrients. So actually having that green and very large wood to have years, because as the small stuff breaks down, you're always breaking down into the big stuff, which is the whole point of it.
I know a lot of people who will fall trees and put it straight in there.
And we had a few. We had a maple and a couple others. We had to supplement. So we had some logs that had a few years on them.
Hi, Valerie. I don't think I caught you.
Yeah, and then we had some really new wood in the middle. And then you're more particular as you get to your smaller stuff on the top.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's a combination. I mean, we'll see how it works. I think it works. There's been, I did that 3 feet wide, 25 feet long by myself with a shovel. He helped me take a couple trees down, but I basically did everything else with that bed.
Kind of somebody else, they're going away from Back to Eden. Some people really love it. Some people don't. Some people had a lot, and that same with the lasagna gardening. I went crazy a year or two ago. Everybody did it. They had some terrible pest potato bugs, which aren't the worst thing in the world, but they had some terrible pest issues. Again, I think it's because everything's green and coming back into balance. Yeah. That it may work in the end. And I think Back to Eden does work for a lot of people, but the first year or two, all that cardboard, and then again the
wood,
8 inches of chips, a foot of chips, it's not fully settled in, and you don't know what's in those chips. Are they really green? Is it diseased? Is it old? Unless you know the source. Yeah. But if you're getting landscaper chip, it could take some time. I think in the end it was pretty good, but I was just talking to somebody this weekend. Was it Hodgepodge? Yeah, he said, I just can't move the stuff around. I don't want to spend the effort of getting all the truckloads and moving it around physically.
Well, and our main bed is actually kind of Back to Eden, but not with wood chips. We did it with the leaves that we have on property. So we just move when we're raking leaves from, our front, which has a lot of trees. We've been putting it directly into our big garden area, and that's broken down and actually created a lot of good compost faster than we have on the Hogue bed.
I think we'd like to do a closer true Back to Eden and try at least a portion. And I think the other big difference is if you have animal manure to mix into it to affect your nitrogen and also to improve your breakdown. I'm guessing that is a big difference. If you have a lot of chicken or cow or other manure that you've either purchased or if you're regularly supplementing it in, it's got to totally change the chemistry of just dumping all that chip on that has to, again, adjust and start into its cycle of breaking down. So.
Yeah, I got to do, I'll probably do a couple more videos on the Hogue bed and how it's doing next year. I have no idea if we're going to we have all this wood built up. I don't know if we're going to get
We started a small pile in back.
Just collecting.
I pull all the sticks out of the front yard. Well, I've been throwing them off to the side of the house to mow this summer. and I threw a bunch of them kind of, it's actually our neighbor's yard, under a
tree.
tree that they don't even see that
A
tree.
pine
And I
tree.
meant to move it a lot earlier. I got it moved a couple of weeks ago. So it was just a bunch of brambles and bigger old dead stuff coming out of our big trees.
Yeah.
So I took the trailer load. I got an entire trailer load from that stuff that I've been pushing to the sides all year.
Yeah,
and move that back there. So.
And then on the top of our Hogue, we did we did some of the leaves this year. I find the leaves blow off the Hogue in our area.
Put dirt over them or
yeah, so what I find actually works better for mulch over our Hogue is actually just straw. So I use like old straw to put over it, which is what I want to mulch it with.
Burlap bag. Well, burlap bags are hard to get through because they take a while to break down.
Yeah,
eventually.
You can,
the straw is pretty nice. It's easy to get in.
Yeah, a thick layer of straw. The garlic likes that too. It'll grow through the straw. So it likes that thick mulch over it. The potatoes actually like that too. If you can't mound on your potatoes, you can put straw over them.
It really keeps the humidity
in there.
And then now the interesting thing that we've been looking at a little more this year, and Mike Hogue did a nice talk on looking at, if you're getting really serious, everybody's trying to build Hougles and do back to Eden, but that's actually deep forest growth and mycelium growth.
Yeah.
And he's like, and a lot of your garden vegetables are open light growth, which are nitrogen growth.
It's a different breakdown process.
Yeah, and so if he looks at the zoning of open fields to forest edge to light forest to deep forest, and that chemistry changes. So you've actually taken deep forest chemistry and heavy mycelium, mushroom growth, and put it in what would typically be open grassland growing. And so getting that chemistry to balance is where Back to Eden may be challenged.
So basically, the idea is the wood mulch is highly mycelium based,
and leaves are too, actually.
But. Yeah, exactly. Any of the wood's material, sticks and leaves and stuff. But the grass mulch is highly bacteria breaking down. Mm-hmm. So there are plants like your brassicas that actually like the bacteria environment over the wood mulch environment.
So yeah, he's suggesting, well, blending it or
creating regions in your garden that have different things.
If it likes heavy grasses, and yeah, the bacteria and the rhizome growth and the nitrogen fixing, maybe you're trying to mound it with hay, and that's why grass likes to grow nice in hay, aside from holding humidity. And then if you start changing the pH and the nutrients that are released in that heavy forest growth, a little bit of all of it's always good. But that's a big new consideration, that being more attentive to grow things where, as he said, everybody tries to grow asparagus. You plant it all over and it doesn't grow, and yet it's grown all over the roads around here. It's like, well, clearly wild asparagus finds its own way to do just fine and grow faster. So if, again, it's the permaculture, let's replicate nature closer if we have a problem, instead of just trying to manipulate it and going, why isn't it growing?
And you look at where it's growing, like that's growing on fields, basically.
Roadsides, old fields,
open areas where there's a lot of grass growing.
And it's a grass.
So it is a grass. So it likes actually growing in that environment, that type of mulch, rather than the wood mulch.
And it likes sandy and air. It likes nutrients and it likes some water, but it likes to be drained. Well, a forest likes to be loam and compact, or not compacted, but a loose, moist environment. Well, asparagus has no interest in being in that, whether there's sun or not.
Yeah.
So that was our new revelation. We haven't practiced that a lot, but being more intent about
where things are going,
how you're giving nutrients, not just water and sun, but actually what you're breaking down.
Yeah. So it is kind of interesting, the different aspects of it, which I'm learning from the permaculture class and videos. And some of those videos, I think, you can actually find Mike Hogue on YouTube.
He has a lot of freebie stuff.
Yeah, so
those videos, specifically on looking at that topic, were just late summer, let's say August.
I'll try to
July or August, and they're freebie videos on YouTube.
Yeah, so let me try to pull him up, and I will link it in the chat here.
So he's local to us.
Yeah,
he's a highly experienced permaculture trained I would say he's a professional.
He's he is. He is.
And
That's
he
what
makes
he
most
does.
of his living through consulting.
Yeah.
So he happens to be in our region, Upper Midwest.
And he's PTC trained, and he does a lot of research himself.
Yeah.
And I think I've linked his stuff before.
In fact, for those of you that are homesteaders, he's of the quality he could be presenting at Homesteaders. In fact, he should be. Yeah. I don't think anybody knows. He stays local, but he could totally stand on a stage for an hour and deliver some really good information.
Absolutely.
In fact, he could give about 6 of them off the top of his head. So.
Okay, so I am actually going to take his channel. I'm not watching the chat at the moment, but let me get it in here.
Bark off of oak trees. Yeah, bark is good stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's, in fact, so my understanding is that bark, and especially new growth, old growth is a little different. That's got a lot more carbon. Any of the new growth stuff under 2 inches and ideally under a 1/2 inch diameter that has the green in it is considered, it's more nitrogen than carbon fixing. And so that's your top layer, and you use that totally different chopped up than your heavy trunk stuff. Now bark is more like trunk stuff, but it breaks down nice and can be really useful. Sort of a nice intermediary. That would probably be stuff that goes on your top. Yeah. Top layer once you go, large to medium to small, and then finishing with your wood chips, bark, and twigs. Yeah. And hay and such.
Straw. I wouldn't use hay. It's got too many seeds in it.
Well, yeah, straw. Clean.
As clean as you can.
And last, we had a lot of dirty barley, which is straw, which is actually nice if you don't mind it popping up for a season or two.
Your chickens will love it.
The chickens will eat it, but barley it gives you straw, and then it reproduces straw, minus the seed, which can actually be chopped and dropped pretty easily when it's immature. So that's not the worst of all things to have a dirty barley.
And actually, barley grows.
It's pretty voracious.
Yeah. I could pull it right out though.
We got really good soil from that barley straw.
And yeah, hi Jason Big Bear. Welcome back. So yeah, we're just kind of answering questions and winging it today. Someone did ask earlier about Homesteaders of America, so I'm probably going to change the topic because that's what we just got back from.
Yeah. 2 days.
2 days. We went down there on Thursday. We stayed in a hotel, although a lot of people camped. We don't have a camper, and it was in the 30s and 40s at night, so we decided.
Which would be exactly why we didn't camp, was to focus on learning and having an enjoyable environment.
But it would have been fun.
And if it was raining and even colder, and then you have to go back to a campsite and maintain camp and rewarm yourself, you spend so much effort, and you end up exhausted, and you can't focus on what you actually spent time and money to go see. So we did a hotel, and it worked just fine.
And it was only a mile away from the
it turned out really
fairgrounds.
Close.
So just to show you a little bit, I don't know if you could pull that up on a big screen, it'd probably be easier. But this is the schedule, 2-day schedule, 3 stages running all the time, and demos and other people with tables and selling things, and there was just a lot going on.
So this was year 2. It was probably twice as long, 2 days instead of 1. Probably twice as big, and there was at least twice as many attendees.
It seemed like it, yeah.
But still, it's very grassroots. There's a very small crew. Almost everybody's volunteer. Everybody's extremely approachable and friendly. Even all the speakers, even as big a names as Joel Salatin and Eustace Conway was there, and
Big Bear was talking about his trapping.
Yeah, Big Bear was totally there, and everybody. Not only were they approachable and friendly, they actually went out of their way to be visible and available for photos or discussions. I think almost the best of that was Doug and Stacy were like, when they weren't talking, they almost separated themselves to hang out and be totally just hanging out. So it was super, super friendly, and all the people were there. So were the same. So I think it was good on that end.
So keynote speaker this year there were 2 keynotes really this year. We had Eustace Conway and we had Joel Salatin. So he was selling books and at the end of his talk and signing books, and we got to chat with him for a little bit.
We ended up 2 feet away from the book signing table when we got up from the lecture. We're like, geez, we're right here.
Yeah, we might as well pick up a book.
Yeah,
and
Joel's coming over the table, and I've never met him in person. We saw him last year, and I followed his He's been one of the biggest inspirations coming out of culinary school, going all the way back to I think it was Omnivore's Dilemma where he was featured, where I became familiar with him.
Yeah.
And then it went on from there. I was like, wow, this guy's incredible.
Yeah. And Stacy Lynn was there, yes.
Yep. Stacy Lynn and Pratt family was there.
And the past are there. And Justin Rhodes was there, and Justin and Rebecca. And we got a few nuggets from him business-wise, too, and Joel, related to business. So that was fun. We got to chat with them one-on-one some more. And I have to fix a picture here before I transfer to it. So excuse me, because I did this all last minute in a half an hour, basically. There were other channels there. So here's Rose.
Hung out with Rose a lot, who we met last year.
Yeah, we met at the conference last year. Same conference, although I'd been watching her channel a bit. We've become friends since then, and moderate each other.
Cindy and Rose moderate for Justin Rhodes on sometimes, so that's a good connection. Where the Rhodes actually know us now, from staying here, and of course they've met so many people. But we have a casual and occasional friendship, and but they actually we actually know each other a little bit.
They actually reached out to us and asked if we could help moderate and things like that, and it's just a lot of fun. And Tina, think about doing a lunatic farm tour.
I finally found the real bathroom. I know where it is. I never used it, but I
didn't find it. I guess you found.
Well, it was up by the house by the flea market.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're at a fairground, and they had a bunch of porta potties, which is fine. But a fairground always has some real bathrooms. Like, we gotta have some. It's a moderately a little smaller fairground than we have around here, but bigger. Last year we overwhelmed it with the max 1,000 people. It was like right away, first morning parking. And so they knew right away they needed a new place. And again, it was year 2. I believe they have committed to. Year 3 at the same location. I don't know if it's the same calendar week, but all the rumors
were right around this time of year
that they're going to use the Warrington County fairgrounds again. They could still put more people on it and more vendors. You put more tents. You could probably add. I don't know if you could quite double it on that current.
It can take a little more growth, I think.
Yeah, it was casual, and there's plenty of room, and we had food trucks. We actually had grass-fed burgers. They had local-made sausages and pork and other things from another vendor, and some ice cream and gelato, and another sort of a farm-to-table food trucks. So there are some trying to be somewhat accommodating and sensitive to people that have very specific food expectations or needs. Obviously, people were bringing food because some people are on very specific diets, either medically or traditionally.
Ladies got gypped in the real bathroom, no water in the sink, just a pump sanitizer like the porta potties.
Yeah, oh really?
Huh.
That would, bathrooms are always important. We luckily had a hotel close by, so.
Big Bear says same place, and it's October 11th and 12th next year.
Okay, good.
Awesome.
So
I didn't get a chance to chat with Amy about that.
Make plans.
And then another thing that happened kind of spontaneously, slightly planned by Rose, was during lunch on Friday. She organized a seed exchange with the YouTube channels, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Amy about it, but I was saying, Rose and I were chatting, and we're like, it'd be kind of fun to do that on a bigger level, and maybe have a, like if MI Gardener's there again next year, they were there this year and give talks and stuff and selling seeds, but if they're there again next year, or one of the other, Baker's Creek or someone, if they say donated some seeds to the exchange to get it started, and then people who were YouTube channels could bring seeds to exchange, and we're talking about like maybe having a table set up the whole time where
I think an exchange table, whether it be starters or scobies or seeds, would be an ideal. Even a craft exchange would be fun. I mean, those will take organization, but you could even do crafts. Hey, this is valued at under $5, and this is $10. And if you have an exchange or cash of, you gotta get probably just an exchange of things that have equal value, and crafts or seeds are a lot of times, we're free. Take some. So that was fun.
Yeah. Oh no, bandana. Only problem was the new to them car. It was too low for the speed lumps and scrape.
We
You
didn't
gotta
get
go
we didn't get
sideways.
parked up that close.
No, we came late a little bit both days.
Yeah,
So.
they had some artificial like dirt speed bumps
Yeah.
that were put in there.
They're
They
pretty
had
big.
pulled
Yeah.
some ditches to drain some water.
Yeah.
I think possibly from the day before. We were thinking it was a lot of fun. It was nice 2 days because there's more opportunity for people to hang out. Unfortunately, that site doesn't handle camping where you can have more of a evening. But
That would be
we
fun.
were just thinking
Yeah.
it would be a lot of fun if they had a pig roast or something. We're like, well, potluck, but you can't do a potluck. There's too many people, and we all, as a chef, we know that whether somebody's malicious or not, you can have people have different sanitary standards, and we could have a problem. But it would be really neat if we could do a pig roast or or have a lot of vegetarian things that would fit, and that we could have some form of a low cost buy-in, because that continues things into the evening in a campfire, even if it's still 7 or 8. Because there weren't really evening activities once after 5, unless people met up and things. So
and suburban hillbilly. So a barter program, kind of. I mean, Rose and I, when we were chatting, we're like, well, it'd be nice if the people who didn't know about it could still participate.
For seeds, totally.
So, like for seeds, maybe they could get like 5 packages of seeds without donating anything, but everyone else, it's a one. Beyond that, it's a 1-for-1 donate to exchange. Need coffee.
We needed more coffee. Yes, there was limited coffee available, and
hot drinks just in general because it's kind of cold.
a trailer that did a variety of hot drinks, of caffeinated and uncaffeinated warm beverages would have been ideal.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah. So if we get Amy Field watching this later, we have suggestions, but it was an awesome conference.
And no complaints at all. No. As the Hollers noted, so they have spent the whole week in the area and are leaving in a day or two.
And here's the Hollers with us.
And Meg Holler goes, finally we get to the conference and we meet a whole bunch of people that are just like us, and we're not strange driving around in a trailer all year.
Yeah, right.
Because they've got, 4 or 5 boys?
They have 4 boys.
4 boys. They've been in a trailer most of the year, checking out the country.
Yeah.
And so they had a blast. And then somebody else, somebody else said, it's funny, you can really tell people that have YouTube channels or don't. It says you can totally tell who's real and who's not. And they weren't talking about people that were here, but people who have channels that are pulling the shade over people's eyes and kind of making up and living larger than they say than they really are. They're like, you can tell that the people that are here are really doing whatever they're doing because they're here talking about it, and they've got all kinds of...
they're real. I mean, everybody's like...
Yeah, so that was...
it was definitely... Because there are some channels where it's just kind of...
Well, that was what Angie and what... I always forget...
Amanda?
I think Amanda might have... Tangi, yeah. I think it was Amanda was possibly saying that.
Okay.
We were chatting for a few minutes.
Yeah, you were chatting with them more than I was.
Yeah, and so we had Frugal Family Food, both of them.
Fundamental Home.
Yep, we're there.
And Freedom Homestead is what it is. So lots of people from lots of different channels, and it's kind of cool because, last year when we went, we were still under 500 subscribers. We're still kind of small. Of all those channels, we're still small.
Oh, we're tiny.
But last year we were just kind of meeting them just a little bit for the first time, and they hadn't really heard of us too much. But this year it was just like, hi, how are you?
And it was surprising how many people we knew, and then we had
a few people,
5, 6, 7 people that knew who we were that we didn't know them, or they were people from the channel that we had never met in person.
Yeah,
which was fun. So.
Teresa, who is often in our chat room. I don't know if
she may still be traveling.
I don't know. She was there.
And that was a big weekend for her because she's still recovering from medical issues. And
Breakaway Homesteader was there, and is it Yankee Living? I think was there, and they're often in our chat room. So it's kind of fun just to put some faces to the names, and some of them have small upcoming channels, and some of them are just really people who watch. So it was really fun to meet all these people in person, and it's really kind of the only place where you could do it is at an event like this because it draws people from so many different regions.
People are shocked at how they said, I can't believe you came from Michigan. I said, do you know how many people there are from Michigan here this weekend?
Yeah, I know.
There's a ton of families.
Let's see. The Pratts, we were there. That 1870s Homestead was there. The guy who does the meat rabbits was there,
which
and
we
I
always forget his name.
And
we had, and two families just in northern Ohio, so they're not much
far
closer. People from Toledo, Rochester, New York area, which is further than.
And Willow Creek was there. Trish from Willow Creek. That was the first time I met her. She's from Idaho. She came all the way out from Idaho.
Yep. And the Aldermans.
Aldermans were there. Yeah.
Yep.
Lots of people. Bandana Grandma and
We had a really good time with Daryl Patton again. He was our standout that we didn't know him last year. We didn't know anything about him.
I have a video coming out.
And he did and he was so useful because he really knows the folk medicine.
He's a forager.
He really knows the plants. He says he knows like 6,000 plants around the world at this point.
No, he said there are 6,000 plants in the South, and he knows about 4,000.
3,000 or 4,000 of them. Yeah. And then and then he really links it to medical.
Roots and Refuge were there. Yes, they were there too.
Oh, there's plenty of people we didn't meet or didn't actually know who they were.
Or put two and two together sometimes. Because like some of the people I recognized, and I was like, I don't remember your names.
And we did our mini forage with Daryl and Stacy.
From Doug and Stacy.
There's like 8 of us, and Stacy's a pretty good herbalist and somewhat forager and grows a lot. So the conversation between Daryl and Stacy and other people there that were doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It was a pretty in-depth.
So it was kind of funny because Daryl gave a talk, but he was also leading forages, just basic things around the main building, kind of pointing things out once every hour. And these forages were like 45-minute to an hour long forages.
He doesn't have to go 2 feet, and
he just point things out as we go.
So, yeah.
So anything from plantain to, and I forget that bone, that type of bone set that you pointed out, but I have it on video, so I'll have to look at it. All these different things as we went, and we had Stacy was there asking questions, and Daryl knows a lot of the science behind, like what is it? What are those phytochemicals that do what he's saying it does? And it was just interesting because you have a few people who had done some foraging, some people were just really beginning to forage, and then you had Stacy, and then we're kind of moderate level foragers ourselves, and basically that whole conversation, we only made it a third of the way around the building, and every other time he was going all the way around the building, and we only made it a third of the way because the discussion was so in depth and it was so much fun. I didn't get back for the full one around.
We were actually started. I was like, he's sort of one of our favorite people. We're looking forward to learning more things. And then Joel Salatin was starting. We actually missed the first 10 minutes. I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm missing Joel Salatin. But
it was so fun with Daryl.
It's not trying to be rude to Daryl, but we also didn't want to leave because Daryl has
so
one of a kind stuff. Actually, almost more so than Joel, because Joel, you can access a lot of his material easily.
And the other thing is, okay, $25 membership to Homesteaders of America, you can access all these talks.
They'll have all the videos up in the next few
all
weeks,
the discussions. So. The forge, I don't know if they'll have. Last year, I probably should shoot Amy an email because last year she gave me permission to video to video the forge and put it up in detail. Now this time he did multiple forges, so each one's probably a little different. But I should probably double check with her. Daryl, he said, find, actually, I got to send him the link to last year. He was wanting the link.
Yeah. He comes up to Michigan, which he said he really likes Michigan. He spends a bunch of time in the summer.
Yeah.
So last year it conflicted with, or this current season, it conflicted with other things going on.
And we knew we were going to.
And we'd already spent a whole bunch of money on permaculture classes. I think it may have even been on your permaculture week.
I think it was.
Which was, well, you're not going to skip one person to go to the next. So that may be the bigger weekend. I'm sure I got market, but maybe send Cindy out to that weekend, or I'd catch up to her in Saugatuck, because that's a fairly intensive annual. I think it's
it was a 2-day thing.
It's a weekend, It's a few days, and I think he spends extra time because he has friends in the area now. He's been doing it so many years.
It would be really cool if we could talk him into visiting our property on his way back. That would be awesome. But
well, we were thinking we'd love to figure out if we could get Nabi away and get her.
I perceive
get her to that, because they do different things, but they would totally click, and it would be amazing. Navi would blow her mind.
Yeah.
Just the new things that she would add to the many things she already knows.
Oh, it would be fun to get those two together.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, bandana. It was funny because all I could think of was like, I cannot mistake who you are because you'll tease me the whole time, and I'm so horrible with names. It was so funny because you tease Mike Pratt so much. I was like, I know who you are. I'm not gonna forget who you are. So I made myself remember who you were before I went there because I knew you were going to be there. But no problems. It's so hard to remember names and channels. Like I remember your channel name. Do I remember your actual name? No, probably not. So I'm horrible with names, but I made sure I know the channel name. Okay.
Old Way.
Stringfield Ridge Homestead is Old Way. Not yeah, yeah. You get a lot of them, and you get whole. The thing is, you get some channels that are just only showing the good, and I think that's what was driving people nuts a little bit. And I think that's good. I try to get some of the challenges in there. I don't want things to be negative all the time either here, so I try to focus more on projects we're doing and stuff. And it is hard to go back and show like when something didn't work well, and it's kind of embarrassing. So you're like, do I really want to show that?
Justin Rhodes was really good about that. I mean,
Yeah.
they've had some big problems this year. I mean, they lost
Yeah.
animals, and they just had some big
And you
oops. We
get
got to
so
back
many.
it up, or we were moving too fast on stuff. But then you had,
That takes courage to do because you get so
especially because
many
he's such a
negative
well. And then when it
comments.
comes with animals, people are
Yeah.
so crazy about you did this to your animal, and
Yeah.
they have different standards and ideals, or just they have no idea what they're doing. Sometimes,
Well, they're learning.
yeah. Well, I
Things.
mean, the people watching
Yeah.
sometimes
Oh,
have
yeah,
no
no.
idea, and they have no. I
They'll
mean, I
give their
know that the
opinion on.
Rhodes spend they do a tremendous amount of care to their animals.
Oh, yeah.
But Doug and Stacy also, they always are talking about how they went 15 different directions on building their homestead and went through all kinds of different horses and methods and buying stuff and selling stuff and backing it up.
Yeah.
Joel Salatin, he's really big on fixing problems and solving problems and doing it efficiently and inexpensively and not overdoing it, because he's all about being a commercial farm and having to make money at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And so
a lot of business side of things. Actually, he has some good books on the business
he's
side
really
of
an
things.
entrepreneur with so many different activities. He's a farmer. He's an old school farmer. But he's really an entrepreneur because he sees each aspect as a piece of their year.
So yeah, and we did pick up one of his books. You picked up Fields of Farmers: Interning, Mentoring, Partnering, and Germinating. So that, and you got him to sign it.
Yeah, that was just kind of unexpected. So this is a book I didn't know he had written. I don't know, it must be a little bit on the more recent end. He's a pretty prolific writer. I assume he has some editors that work with him. But 2013.
So. Yeah, so it's been 5 years since we wrote this.
Well, and they've moved so much into a huge intern-extern program with whole, free, but they feed everybody and they have housing. And so sort of like Zingerman's and other people, he has to very seriously think about what are his standards, because so many people want to intern and be mentored. How does he do it, and how is it useful to his operation? How is it useful and fair to everybody?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of their operation. Yeah.
And I picked up Amy Fields' book, and I started reading it on the way home. So it's the Homesteaders Herbal Companion, which I know released, I believe, in the spring. So it's a new book.
Pretty new, yeah.
And I've just started looking over it. It looks pretty well organized and things. And she's trying to keep things basic so beginners can focus on it. It looks like she does give you like warnings and things, so you got to watch that. So I'm going to go through that book and see how it is. It may end up in one of our, well, not this one in particular, but we may end up doing a giveaway at some point, including it. For those of you guys who don't regularly watch us, by the way, because I think there's some people in the room who are occasionally in the room, some of the people who are new to the room. Here once a month we do a giveaway, something small. Not it could be a book, it could be occasionally pasta, it could be a variety of things. So once a month, we don't say when it's coming, but sometime in the month we do a giveaway. So You won't call me what's her face. um, yes, thank you. Um, and I won't call. Yeah, I won't call you what's her. I won't call you what's her face for forgetting our channel name. That was absolutely fine. But but so yeah, so I'll take a look at that book, and if it looks like a good, easy to read home reference book, which so far is looks pretty good, but
Yeah.
I've really just started looking at it. Then we might use it as one of our giveaways here because I having home references like that is really what we go by. We learn and get ideas from others on YouTube, but a lot of what we expand on in more detail come from books. So, and we're all about experimenting and things, but with foraging, you want to know.
Yeah, foraging, you can't make mistakes.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you can have some very unhappy days, or you can be a very quick trip to the
yeah.
emergency room, or the end on some mushrooms. So
Yeah.
most the plants, it's not so drastic, but the mushrooms especially.
And having, one of the big topics I think came up in the Q&A was the question of, people had a lot of questions that led to having mentors and how to do things, finding someone local to mentor. And we did that with foraging. We have our local foraging guide, and we try to pass on some of that information. But if that's something you want to do, it's not just YouTube. You want to make sure that you have local mentors to help you out if you're building some big project.
We were talking a couple of weeks ago, because my business is not related to the homestead, but it's sort of can be symbiotic, and it definitely is useful. So my pasta business is a little over a year old, and as a professional chef, I've mentored many people on aspects of cooking and organizing menus that I'm pretty good at. But I've been working with a couple of mentors on building this business specifically, and some very technical things, and some marketing and designing, and trying to keep a small business running. So I've got a bunch of that going on. Also, where I've got some really phenomenally experienced people that I'm working with pretty regularly. And then, Cindy was saying, maybe, well, people said, why don't we bring our pasta out to sell at Hootenanny? We could probably sell a ton of it, which I think we could. I mean, at Homesteaders. And I said, well, I all along, I kind of passed my mind, but I carry a state license.
It's not a USDA license.
Yeah, it's an interstate, not an intrastate. It's an intrastate, not an interstate.
Yeah.
So I would have to do research on Virginia. What can I bring this product in, and can I sell it, or can I buy a temporary license that's convenient and easy, or is it practically impossible to be able to do that?
And it might be possible to do it. We just have to look into it.
Well, the other thing I could do is I could partner with somebody who's selling something else, and they could technically buy it. We also sell online, which there's an opportunity that we may be able to do a table and actually sell it through our online, like and through our Square account, where you're purchasing, but that gets a little iffy. That you're purchasing, and I'm making the delivery happens to be, it's available on the table, and you make a purchase that goes online, which we are legally able to do.
Yeah.
But we may look into that next year, and then Cindy was saying, well, maybe I could do a pasta do something related to pasta demonstrations, or we could do something related to
like
small businesses, or sort of symbiotic things that are. We happen to be
sustainable. I mean,
we're sustainable. We're local to some degree, as far as we're a local business. We use organic flour. I've built a kitchen out of the house, which was incidental. That wasn't the plan, but we're actually more homestead than we thought, because currently my kitchen is a homestead kitchen.
I mean, it is. I mean, it's actually, I think starting a small business, if you are wanting to do homesteading, part of it is trying to figure out income sources and how to do that. So how to start something like your own small business and to get it going, and if it's food related, some of the legal aspects behind that are just.
I might be better in a couple of years about telling you how to start it and keep it going. Well, we're only a year in, but
our experiences so far.
I think another
and consideration.
One thing I do a lot as a chef, we did things with another mentoring group in a community group called Can Do Kitchen, which is a food incubator. We could talk about So through some of those experiences, I've learned a lot about people not being well prepared. They want to start a food business or they have an idea and they have no clue what it's going to take. So that might actually be a good topic of legal's a little different in every state, and some Michigan's on the easier end. They've been pretty accommodating. We lived in New York, which is probably on the tougher end. But hey, you want to start a home business and sell especially consumable soaps fall sort of into that category because you
have to list what's
soaps and lotions and salves because it touches your body, but it's not as strict as things that you eat. So telling people, how do you legitimately build a commercial professional business that's either part-time or in my case full-time, so that you're setting up, what's realistic if you're thinking about doing this, because a lot of people don't know.
And realizing what it takes financially to start things up. Some things are easier to start.
Equipment.
Some things are easier and cheaper to get started than other ideas. So, I mean, trying to take think about what to take into consideration. So I'm thinking, and you guys can tell me what you think about this, but starting to incorporate a little bit of that information, just like brief little videos on, what to take into consideration if you are trying to start a home business too. Ours is specifically food related, but what you should take into account in general.
And food carries a higher standard. I mean, everything has zoning and has legal and accounting and taxes and all the rest, which are all important. But food carries the extra standards of, are you going to be county? Are you going to be state? Are you going to be federal? And who can you sell to? And are you selling meat or dairy that has more controls? Or are you? So there's a lot of detail that people that may make really good food haven't gotten over that hump, and that can kill somebody. But if you have somebody that walks you through it, they can get over that hump. And while it takes, I carry so many lab manuals and compliance charts right now, more so than a regular kitchen, because we're building up to be more and more available, that at some point, if we want to be USDA, FDA,
we're going to those
compliant.
standards.
We're trying to move as close as we can. So my logbooks and my startup and shutdowns and my products and things are being documented more than I've ever documented in a kitchen, in a commercial food preparation kitchen. And those are things, I have some background in some of those areas.
And it's kind of interesting because your science background has kind of helped with that. I mean, we were both trained in biological sciences.
I've done a lot of, I've had to do a lot of, how do you test an item? Like I have to do lots of variations. I've done 30 or 40 batches on just a few things, trying to optimize or get, like my ramen was very difficult. Figuring out when I have a new flavor or like a new ingredient going in that's going to act differently.
How it works.
How do I adjust it? Knowing that it's got to be, it may not be successful, but my thought is it's pretty much going to be successful. I just have to find the formula that's going to get it out of my equipment and look and behave the way I want it. Texture, chew, flavor,
that's
machinery, capabilities.
As you have your standard recipe, you have a couple flavored thing, natural flavors, and ramen noodles, and you've been working on trying to get a gluten-free, which a lot of people.
Which I'm close, and that's not the hardest thing, but and then figuring out costings. People always get confused on costings. And what it takes to
make it.
How much it costs beyond the cost of the ingredient. Like making bread is a classic example. Bread flour is $15 a bag. Good bread flour is $25, $30 a bag.
How big a bag?
50-pound bag. By the way, and also buying at the grocery store, you'll never make it.
No.
You just can't, because the stuff is so much cheaper. But how much that markup, what it costs, and everything else to get that loaf of bread out, it's a big deal. So.
And the packaging and the labels.
We did packaging and label and compliance.
Oh my gosh.
And nutrition and allergens. It's more than a lecture. I mean, that is a course. It's multiple courses. So I've done a lot of that just naturally, but we're putting it all together. Into a package as a business. So we might start doing some side stuff a little bit on that.
Some extra little videos on why you wanted to start your own business and what little things.
Cindy told me to do it, is why we did it.
I told you to do it. Well,
She said, why don't you go make pasta and forget about this job?
Well, you had been talking about the idea.
I had been talking about making pasta and using similar equipment for a number of years.
And then I said, well, why don't you just do it? Just start your own business and do it, because there's nobody doing it here.
And there isn't. I have no competition. I also have And that's the big thing is
Research.
concepting. I have to make a market for something that people don't fully understand or value in our area, where in other areas people value it higher. So I have to build why people want to buy something.
Instead of going to the grocery store and getting the
But
cheap stuff.
I don't have 6 other people making the same thing, which is a problem with coffee and beer and bread and candies and dog treats
and soaps in our area.
Soaps, and that's the same around the nation. So finding that niche where I've actually got to break open the niche, but I would way rather have to open up and explain to people the quality and the complication and the really the eatability, why they desire it, and say, well, you don't understand the technology, or you don't understand the benefits. I'd way rather do that than differentiate it.
Linda, I missed your question. I'm sorry. Do you have a list of your favorite foraging books? I do. Actually, in the description of the video,
right. Yeah.
If you go down below, there is, I believe I put it in there, a link to Kit, my part-time Permies kit. And I'll try to pull it up here and put it in the chat room too, if you like. It's a web page where you can list. It is kind of a cool web page. You can list by category things that you use often, and if you have an Amazon Associates account, which we do, you can create links from that to the Amazon Associates account. So if you do, by the way, we don't earn a huge amount from Amazon. I don't think I've gotten a check yet. But
well, you know, if you gotten it.
No,
I haven't got one yet.
Actually, it might be a direct deposit, so I have to double watch that to see. But I'll get an email notification. But basically, what that is I do have one that is foraging books, and it lists a lot of the foraging books that I do use. I have one that's some of the gardening, and I'm constantly building this. I have really just started to build these lists. I have one for foraging books. I have one for gardening tools. I think one for chicken supplies. We have a few cookbooks that we put in there that you like. Although you have like 3 bookcase fulls of cookbooks.
I'm sure we could
probably add that. Yeah. So we're going to. I'll work on building on that as well, but it takes a little time to put it up. But if you do click on that, it takes you to that list. If you click on anything in that list, that takes you to Amazon directly to that. So yeah, if you purchase, I think it's within 24 hours of clicking on that link to Amazon, we do get, and in fact, or if you click on that link and then go searching on Amazon and do other things, I think we get a little bit of percentage back from whatever you buy. It doesn't add any cost to what you buy. So if you're buying it anyway, then you're buying it anyway. It's like a referral.
So buy things however you like, but if you buy them through Amazon, click through us, that's great.
That's awesome. And you can do that through other channels too. A lot of them will list Amazon Associates account in the description below. I started organizing as a kit, partially because I saw that Justin Rhodes started doing that and looking at that, and other channels have started it a little bit. But it's a good way to organize based on category. So if you have a certain category that you like that we cover, like the foraging books, I'll have a list of foraging books there, and I'll constantly be updating that if we find new things. Like I don't know if Amy Field's book is on Amazon. I'll have to double check that. It's definitely on her webpage. But if it is, and I like to look at the book a little before I put it on there and recommend it. But and I just started looking at it today. So it looks like a good book. It'll probably end up on there as well. So you could check that out. I'm pretty sure it's in the description below, but I'll double check.
Do I ever use alternative water flour?
You did ask the chef.
I was going to tell you got a question that came in earlier in the week. I use some alternative flours. Right now I am using semolina based, which is the classic. I haven't done anything over 50%. An alternative flour plus semolina. So that makes a soba noodles are fun. So yeah, so as far as trying to get the gluten down, I can get it down, but I have not debuted a gluten-free, full gluten-free item because you need to have chew and texture and flavor. But I also need it to be able to come out of my machine and dry properly. So there's a whole lot of standards I have to meet on that. And my ramen has buckwheat in it. It's a small amount of buckwheat, so it's not a soba. A soba is usually 50% or more. And do watch, many sobas are not completely buckwheat. So if you're trying to avoid gluten at a high level, understand that most commercial soba noodles are just a portion. Buckwheat is a little pricey, but not terrible. It can get strong. It's like rye. It's a fairly earthy forward flour, and so by cutting that with wheat flour can also make people like it better.
Yeah.
I tend to like buckwheat overall.
Yeah.
So yes, we're actually opened up a lot of categories. I have a lot of sourcing to really nice alternative grains. Many of them are organic. And so from my wholesale, I give the opportunity to price in and cut in that item. Usually it's going to be in the 10 to 25%. Whole wheat, I can push 50% definitely. After that, I have to start adding in gluten actually, which if people just want the flavor, but actually add in powdered, vital gluten because I need the elasticity to get it to bind together. And if you're adding in low gluten, low binding flours, and you're making pasta, you gotta bind them. So it's actually potential that I could have a high level of something in there, but I could have a couple tablespoons of gluten going in.
Not looking for gluten, completely gluten free. Just
soba noodles. But I mean, the flavor. We're not gluten free. I know for a lot of people it's important, but I like soba noodles. I like the flavor of them. So.
Yeah. And what was the question? I forgot what
the question was.
It was from Tina, right? Is Tina still here? I hope she's still here.
Tina was. Yep. She responded not long ago.
Okay. Yes.
I think she's here.
Yeah. Yeah, she's still up in the chat.
Well, I could go back to my phone's on the charger. I could get it.
I can. Okay.
I think it's over here.
You had it there.
Well,
I could pull it up on. It was on Facebook. It was on one of my old things on Facebook. Yeah. I'd have to look up the question. Unless Tina, you remember your question. I
saw it earlier today, and I said, "Oh yeah, we can talk about that." I just have to remember what we were talking about.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna pull it up here, because I know it was It was on this post here. Tina. Okay. I think it was on here. Was it on the My Talkie post? I'm trying to remember. Sorry. Right. And we're not doing a foraged food feature this week because didn't have time. I didn't even have time to put together a video this week because it was so crazy trying to get out of town.
Tina, I think this might get me there.
You got it?
Yes. What is the purpose of fish sauce? That's what it was, of course.
Yeah.
And can you substitute? Well, you said you're allergic to seafood to the point where it makes you, vomit, which means you've got a strong reaction or even an anaphylactic reaction. So yes, is there a substitute? Clearly, don't use it.
Yeah, no,
it doesn't work for you.
But what can you do?
Yeah, so fish sauce actually goes all the way back to the Romans and maybe before, and they called it gar. Gar was basically you take, and there's a variety of things from Africa all the way through Asia and Greece and Rome of taking different forms of fish and shrimp and squid and letting them rot, salt them, and doing somewhat of a controlled rot, and then creating some form of a paste or a liquid, which would be used. So, and it does involve some fermentation as well as some curing.
Breakdown.
So what you're doing effectively is you're releasing aminos, so amino acids, which is the same thing that's in soy sauce, the same thing in Worcestershire sauce, pepper sauces to some degree, beer. So as you break down these proteins, they release down to their core components, amino acids, and they become very pungent. In fact, in small doses are useful because they make us desirable, and our bodies, we like to eat stinky things. As we taste less and we get older, we like stinkier things. Kids have a hard time with them as potent, mostly because they taste
taste stronger to them because they have more.
But your brain also learns. Your brain needs different things, but your brain learns and begins to want different things. So
it doesn't taste good by itself.
So fish sauce is among the stinkiest, most funky things.
Yeah.
If you even ever use Maggi or Kitchen Bouquet, or some of those have a lot of caramel color and some flavor, but they also can have aminos in them. In fact, Maggi has a lot of aminos. Nutritional yeast, which is used in a lot of vegetarian things, is based on yeast protein and amino breakdown, which tastes kind of cheesy and earthy, different. So fish sauce smells like rotting fish. It's extremely salty. So you would use it, one, to add salt, and two, to add these deep flavors of aminos, which in very small doses is desirable, and in larger doses is noticeable, and in too much is disgusting. Um, so the best way to describe that is in seafood, if you eat mussels, um, mussels, as they get old, because they don't have a bladder, they secrete, and they basically urinate in their mussel, and so in their shell, and so as they get old, you can tell they're old because they smell like urine. Their byproduct of metabolism is urine. So
uric acid.
Yeah, and so and shark and other things, skate wing, break down the same, and they smell pissy, and need to be rinsed before you use them. So that minute amount of uric acid is highly desirable to the human palate. But as it gets slightly, more than anything, the slightest amount that's available on a mussel, fresh, as it gets older, it becomes highly disgusting to the point where you don't want to eat it. So you can rinse down some of those things and relieve some of that, but at a point it's breaking down. So it goes very deep in our desire for foods and nutrients. So you use it as a back flavor, as a salt, as a funky agent. In India, they have a sulfur that they use in some parts of India and for some food, and it smells like rotten eggs. And it's like fish sauce, the smallest amount. It is like, you want to get sick. It smells so bad. And they actually add it to food, but they add it in very small amounts because it builds out a flavor that is desirable, these sulfur compounds. So that's the use for fish sauce. So fish sauce is always optional. It's used very sparingly, and we're talking a couple of drops in items. And take the bottle and wrap it up in a Ziploc bag really, really tight and put it in a cupboard, because if you spill it or break it, and we've broken them in kitchens, we've spattered people with fish sauce and like in meringues. It's terrible.
Those stinky things.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
To get off, the smallest amount. You drip it on your chef coat. You smell it all night.
Usually we're making people hungry with the show.
Yeah, but I do enjoy fish sauce, and there's different types. There's different ones from different areas. And then there's shrimp paste, which goes a lot of times into kimchis that are not vegetarian style, and other ferments and picklings to begin some of those processes. So I enjoy fish sauce, and it can be used as a condiment. Curries, but it's a small amount. So there you're balancing salt and funky and sweet and coconut milk and sour things like lime and tamarind, and you're playing this balance of these things and bringing them in balance. If they get out of balance, you can be a little too sweet. It's not that big of a deal. Get too salty, it's a bigger deal. You get too funky, or too much hot pepper or too much garlic, you really got to bring it back to a middle ground, and it's a balancing act. And when done right, if you can tolerate it without being allergic, it's really good.
Yeah. So it sounds gross, but actually adds
and your replacement is used soy sauce. It's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
It's not going to be the same. It's a different profile, but and there are many types of soy sauce too.
And you're adding the salt with the soy sauce.
Yeah, and you're adding the salt. So if you're fine, use, and just like soy, use as much as you desire or can tolerate, or salt level that is healthy for you. But that's your go-to.
Our cat's going nuts behind us.
I gotta brush your teeth now. Well, brush them with some baking soda. That's kind of nasty too.
A lot of people do that.
I know, it's still kind of, well,
I don't like the
textural wise.
Yeah, I don't like. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
What was that? What was Tina's question?
Is that Kiri's question that was the fish sauce question, or was it Tina's? I may have just had a bad memory. Anyway, I'm trying to see if we missed any.
Oh, cavatappi, that's right. I bought cavatappi. Well, that's Kiri also. Cavatappi is like a long corkscrew, or it actually is a corkscrew, meaning.
Yeah, Tina's the one who was waiting for the channel to start yesterday.
Oh yes.
I forgot. I was mixing it up because Kiri had posted the same post and commented on.
So cavatappi is like a macaroni, like an elbow macaroni that's extended into a corkscrew. It's fairly popular. It makes a nice macaroni and cheese or casserole because it's a bigger piece, and it's a nice for a standard red sauce pasta. I would say use it however you like to use it. It's a really it's versatile and it's kind of popular. But it does make a nice like baked macaroni and cheese, or if you're doing like a tomato and beef or sausage, and again doing a ziti type bake out.
Tina, you're not the only one who I know who's had some dog biscuits. You've tried some. You're curious.
Well, I've tried quite a number of them because I want to see what if
what you're giving the dog.
Yeah, I mean they're more sensitive than us. If it's completely intolerable, and again they like stinkier things and like things different than we do.
Yeah.
But if it's completely intolerable, I'm not sure why they'd like to eat it either.
Oh.
Yeah, I've never eaten the sulfur off of matches. That doesn't sound.
No. We've tried some strange things.
They just got home. Yeah, I'm sure you got lots of moving around and unpacking. We're kind of finishing up. If people, it's 10:15, so we're in overtime. But if anybody has any other questions,
it was thicker than elbow macaroni.
It can be a thicker. The extrusion, the thickness of how much when it comes out. I have a cavatappi die. I can't get it to work. It's so hard because you're making it twist in two different angles, both curling around and coming out as a curl. You have to get both of those things working at the same time. So it's actually very hard to make. So part of that, the thickness can be related to the physics of it.
Thanks for joining us, Perceiving Alive. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we gotta wrap up here soon too. But any other cooking related questions before we get going? I actually
conference questions
or conference
cooking
questions. So and I think
don't burn your leaves. We came home and there's burning leaves already.
Use them in your garden.
Put them in your garden
put them in your compost. Don't burn them.
They smell so bad. And I'm getting more sensitive to them over the years. But this part of the area we're out in the country, everybody burns piles and piles of leaves for a month. Yeah. And it's like there'll be a week. If we get a nice weekend and a week or two from now, we'll be like choking on burning leaves.
Actually, his gluten-free pasta curry is
the gluten-free that I'm preferring and moving towards is a legume or chickpea base.
Yeah.
Chickpeas, there's a couple good things. It's high protein, which creates a chew when it's cooked, replicating something closer to the high protein and high gluten in a flour. Chickpea is one of the most neutral in color and flavor, so you don't get a real beany taste, which can be off-putting if you're expecting to eat pasta. So high protein, good chew and structure. Yeah. But it doesn't have the gluten stickiness. They're inexpensive. They're already a world commodity item. Chickpea flour is already out there for other things, making doughs and a lot of things.
Burn leaves benefit the garden. Ashes do.
The burn leaves are good for the garden, but less good than the whole leaves.
In moderation too, because you actually make it more alkaline with burnt ashes. So
you change your pH, which can be good or bad. Yeah.
So if you have really acidic soil, it will neutralize your soil. But you do want to make sure.
And biochar also. Yeah. So what's left are the carbons and all that pretty much burns. Well, you have charred carbon, but you burn out almost everything else. So your vitamins leave, a lot of your other nutrients leave. What remains are your crude minerals and your crude carbon.
Yeah, so your calcium and carbon.
So you get a concentration of minerals, which sometimes you need, which is why you do use bone char and use other burn charcoals and things. But because the calories that are burned, anytime you burn something, you're using up something. You're putting those into the surroundings, and you're not putting them into the garden.
Yeah.
So if you can break them down naturally by laying them compost in a big pile or spread out, you're going to get even more nutrients from them.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal to burn. Like it's just we burn a lot of brush. In our area, and they move new construction, burn things out.
That may have been what's happening.
It's not as noticeable as because everybody's burning modest amounts of leaves over a couple of weekends, and you can see a cloud.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's other parts of the country, but it's traditional. People have very big yards that tend to be in this area with acres that are lightly grassed, and then they have big oak trees and maple trees that are ornamental.
Yeah.
And so they want those cleaned out for the grass, and they'll burn them all. So It's just too much. It's not that it's a terrible thing to do. It's just
no,
too
it's
much.
not. What I usually do is like all our ashes over the winter, I will go take that and sprinkle it through our garden, and we have slightly acidic soil. So
Yeah,
now I don't do that where I have my blueberries because blueberries like acidic soil.
You want to put your pine needles there.
You want to put the pine needles there, yes.
Yeah.
But our garden is actually next to a couple pine trees,
so we want to watch acidity there.
We're trying to balance it out. So I actually do over the winter. I do take my buckets of ashes from this fireplace back here, and I will kind of scatter them through the garden, not too heavy in any one place, but I will use those. And some people will put them into their compost.
And your nutrients in leaves are different than your nutrients in hardwood.
Yeah.
In fact, they're less nutrient, and that's what they burn funny because they've got different compounds and
a lot more chlorophyll.
The nice thing about biochar and using your leftover wood, if you're burning clean wood or fireplace wood, that is very high in vitamins or in minerals. And so you only need very small amounts.
Yeah.
Think about how much wood burns down to a very small amount of ash. So that ash, a few pounds, can cover a large part of your garden.
Yeah.
But it is very important to building deep nutrients in your garden.
Yeah. So we do that through the winter a bit, but I'd rather, for the leaves, I'd rather just go ahead and put them on the garden and use it, thick mulch, and use it to break it down. What we tend to do...
And we put the chickens in there, too.
Yeah, we'll put the leaves in there, and then we'll go and put the chickens in there after the leaves, either late fall or early spring, before we're ready to plant anything. And that way you have a good carbon to nitrogen from the chicken poop ratio, and the chickens also will go through eating a lot of the seeds that might be in there and eating a lot of the bugs that might be in there.
Germinate in the warmer time, which is good.
The bugs germinate?
Well, the bugs,
the seeds do.
The seeds and the bugs that all grow so that you get them out before they
take off.
Tina had a good question. Goes, she picked up a bunch of leaves for compost, and frequently you can get them cheap. Yeah, you don't, as far as compost, a big pile, you can lay them out in a thick, because they'll mat down real quick. Lay them out 8 inches, a foot deep, which can be a lot of leaves, over a garden bed, and just leave them for the fall,
straight
winter.
on the garden.
If you want to pile them up, you can. I just put them on bare ground, because if you tarp them, you have the chance of starting to pickle your ground. Anytime you have too much plastic coverage over an area, now a 10 by 10 is not terrible, but you can cause the ground to start to ferment and change the pH of the ground, making that area underneath it not as useful. Instead of having it become part, you can always dig the first couple of inches under your pile.
Yeah, I just pile it up thick like any compost.
And I like the idea of putting it with the wood chips, because if you mix the leaves, which are considered green material even though they're brown, and the wood chips, if they're inner core, are considered brown material, now you have carbon and nitrogen.
Good balance.
And you could mix them very heavily, leaves and a modest amount of wood chips in layers. That would be an ideal compost. What you will find is leaves need the mycelium or
that's awesome,
to come in and pick it up to break it down. So you may need to turn them once or twice, but leaves typically take 1 to 2 years to break down if they're just in a pile, because it's an action of the mushroom fungus.
Yeah.
And mycelium, which is slower. That's why actually, if you mix it with the wood chips, you might get a faster breakdown.
Yeah.
Or it will break down as a nice loose compost over time once it gets in your garden.
Good balance on it. And
so you have a choice to go either way.
Over bare ground, because you'll get the mycelium coming up from the ground.
Yeah.
Too. So I wouldn't put it on a tarp. I wouldn't cover it because you want it to stay damp. So I usually just leave it as is. Now, if you're getting a hurricane coming through this area, maybe you cover it for that.
Sometimes if you don't want to blow all over, you put a fence, a typical compost, bin fence around it, just to keep it from all winter
from blowing everywhere else.
Not having anything left in the spring. That would be
or having it all over your yard instead of
and all over that in a big pile.
Yeah.
We tend to put that stuff in our garden, and our garden has a 8-foot fence, so it stays in the garden.
In a corner of the greenhouse, it could actually work too, because then you're adding the heat to it.
You might get bugs in there if you're actively using that greenhouse in the winter. You may watch out for whatever hatches. That's a problem on keeping a clean greenhouse.
And Kiri, no, I took tomorrow off so I can do laundry and edit some videos. No, mainly to do laundry.
I'm working tomorrow. You got to make pasta tomorrow. Be a lot of stuff to do.
So I did actually plan that because I knew it would be fairly late when we got home today, and I knew I'd have to catch up on my normal weekend stuff.
They
So
charge $17 a ton for leaves. I think most of our local places, I think they give it away. For a while they couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. They had such big piles.
yeah,
We're out in the country now, so we don't have leaf collection. But when we
everyone
were in a
burns them.
city, if you lived in the city, any of the grindings or leaf pile with different piles, you could come either for super cheap or for free by just showing a water bill, and you could take household amounts, pickup trucks or trailer loads pretty much for free, or it was an extremely small amount. I can't remember. But most people didn't do it, so the city used them on their parks and things. But they usually have a harder time trying to get rid of it than
Yeah,
than having to sell it. But I mean, using it's good because so many times the cities collect them and build them up into massive mounds, and they're not doing any good.
they could use it and sell the compost
Well,
from
and
it.
some of them
Jeez.
do. A lot of places they compost all of the
Yeah,
general trimmings, which you got to watch out because you can have some disease stuff in there. And they'll do, and then you got a hot compost. They'll do the Christmas trees. Problem with composting the Christmas tree, that chip is all pine, and it's not real balanced. So it's good for like putting chip into
into
a
your
bed
chicken
or
run.
or under a well, it's the bigger chips, or putting it
Yeah,
under a swing set or something. It's not perfect for garden. Um, but yeah, it's in every town's better or worse. But if you call
yeah.
the town works department, they can usually tell you where it goes, whether it's informal, you can get it this time of year, or they have a formal method for pickup or
Yeah.
charge. So
Yep. Okay, guys.
yeah,
Yeah, so we should wrap this up. Helix, of course, decided to join now. He's been like going nuts, running back and forth behind us. I have no idea if you could hear this tiny cat thundering through our room, but he finally settled on my lap. Um, but we should say goodnight because we have a lot to get done
first
tomorrow.
frost came in while we were gone, also. So we've got to see.
We gotta check the
We got to get
garden.
stuff out of the garden. Some may be damaged. I don't
We'll
know
have to
how
see.
heavy. I don't think the frost was that heavy. A lot of it will be fine because it's got heavy cover.
Yeah.
But we do need to take down.
Another advantage of a jungle garden, right?
Yeah, the frost doesn't penetrate some of that under stuff.
Yeah.
It just gets the top. But we know that we're going to start losing stuff, and we probably
Yeah.
lost some of the herbs that we were too busy to get them out.
Yeah, so we'll have to go see.
But our freezer's also full, so we've got to
We gotta do
moderate.
something about that.
We're trying to get another freezer.
Yeah.
So we need to moderate how much we can pack away at the moment, anyways. So
Yeah. Oh,
our freezer isn't full of so much use. I mean, it's useful, but we got more kind of junk in there than.
we clean
It's not densely packed and nice stuff. We have a hog coming in end of
in
the
a few
month,
weeks.
so you'll start seeing some stuff with that.
Yeah.
So we need to get room, and that's densely packed, high quality, and that'll be enough pork for probably over a year because we're getting a large whole one instead of half a one. So I think we got enough pork for more than 12 months. So.
Oh no, Carrie. Oh, by the way, good thing to use on stings, spider bites, or anything like that. Because yeah, you could get spiders and other things in your piles of hay and mulch and everything.
Yeah, watch those spider bites. They can get real bad real fast.
But it'll be in our Daryl Patton video. Take some plantain leaves. Take some plantain leaves, boil them for about, I think it was 5 to 10 minutes until they're soft and you can see through them, and then go and put it on there. Or he started with potato first.
No, he started with potato first.
If it was a spider
the boiled
bite.
plantain was for something else.
No, it was at the end of that. It was potato to start softening the area.
And you need to grind it,
and to draw to a warm potato cooked, draw out some of the poisons, and then he did 3 layers of plantain after that to neutralize it, and then on the third one he wrapped it and held it on there, and skin started growing within a day into people who had like brown recluse bites and stuff like that.
Yeah, so for the potatoes, probably the most,
it draws some of the poison out.
Careful thing is you boil the potato so it's firm, like a mashed potato before it starts to come apart.
Yeah.
Cut, so you have a cut end that would be boiled or steamed, and you let it cool down. It needs to be warm to hot. But he says there's a fine line between putting a boiling potato on your skin, which will scald you. It needs to be tolerable and not to damage your skin. The potato because potato is the pH and other things, may actually help draw out the poison in itself.
It's like a sponge.
But but it also, and then the worm will heat up the area and cause vascular activity. So that the combination of the heat and possibly the potato itself.
And then the plantain actually has chemicals that neutralize the poison.
Yeah. So do the potato do a couple pieces, 2 or 3 pieces of potato over it.
And by plantain, you guys know that we're talking about the weed that grows outside almost anywhere in the U.S. Not the banana. So, yeah.
Yeah, so he says this is the cooked versus the raw. You need the warm potato specifically. It also says that it causes histamines to become active because of the warming, become overly active.
So it gets itchy.
If you release, but as those histamines release, they won't recover for 6 to 8 hours. Which means if you're getting a itch and a swelling reaction, you may knock it out for a number of hours on top of it and make it less annoying. And then the plantain, which has a healing effect. So the two in combination, he claims is good enough. Daryl Patton is completely for modern medicine and emergency medicine.
Yes.
By the way, using it in combination and using emergency medicine and common medicine antibiotics as needed first.
Yeah.
But he says this is a good enough, and he says it will work for a severe scorpion or spider bite.
And he said it works better than comfrey. He goes to this over comfrey. Yeah. Because it has more some of the similar active chemicals.
And you can puree it. The other thing you can do is puree it in a VitaPrep blend, in a high quality blender, high speed blender. And you can make a puree with it, and you can pack that on there as well.
A paste with the plantain, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a little leery of the chew and put on, but if you're in the field, that works too. The problem is what kind of bacteria do you have in your mouth and going to open wound. But that does start breaking down if you can't boil a plantain leaf.
And he said he doesn't matter what type of plantain. The
English or Lance.
The lance or common,
or the common plantain, or which is broadleaf.
So with those two you find in your front yard, and if they're purple, they're the native ones. And some of them get really big. So none of them matter. They're all about equally effective.
So we do have if you go to the webpage below, we do have a blog post on plantain. So if you want to learn how to identify it, go there. But it is everywhere. So if you don't have it in your yard, I'd be really surprised. Even in the stony areas, it grows in poor soils and sometimes on cracks in sidewalks. So anyway,
and so he was talking about spider bites, and he's worked with spider bites a lot. He's actually worked with his local hospital on specialty cases,
and some doctors
and other things with some severe cases or looking at stuff. So of course the spider bites, if they get really bad, they necrose. And the problem is they keep eating out tissue, and so they end up just taking, first they try and neutralize it and do antibiotics, and then they take a big chunk of your flesh out, trying to just keep the good flesh there. So but on a spider bite, if it starts getting bad, you definitely need to see a doctor sooner than later, because they can be really severe. Spider bites you do tend to find in a day or so. When you look at them, you usually have 2 fang marks in them. They're very small. It may be hard to see, but you typically get a double prick if it was a spider.
Yeah.
So could be. But
anyway, I hope you feel better. And I'm trying to see if there's anything. Yeah, it could have been anything. But you can, by the way, you can use plantain for a lot of neutralizing.
Centipedes and scorpions. Yeah, centipedes can give a nasty bite. But for all those, I'm not sure, but and especially as you get into really warm climates, they can be really bad.
The scorpions, we don't have them here.
As you get down towards Atlanta, we had scorpions and some centipedes. So, but all those have toxins and poison, so that same method would be good. Don't trust us. Trust Daryl Patton, and he'll.
We'll get that video up this week, but I don't know if it'll be soon enough for you.
He's an extremely strong believer in that as good as any other method that the docs are going to do for you, but obviously see a doctor first.
Or see if
this method won't hurt you.
If it gets worse, see a doctor.
It won't make it any worse.
If it gets worse, see a doctor. But you can try this. I mean, if these are things you have at home or you have outside,
you can do it immediately. And the biggest thing is doing those things immediately.
You might not need.
It's like these things aren't. It's the faster you can treat it, the less it's going to harm you in the end. So
yeah. So this is if it's all still localized in your hand.
Yeah, who knows what got you? Yeah.
Yeah. Or was there some stinging nettle that mixed in with your hay?
Yeah, right. Well, that only stings for like 15 minutes usually. Yeah. It goes away.
Or something. Yeah.
Well, you could easily have something in there give you a little irritation or bite.
But yeah, I think we'll have to end it. I hope you feel better, Kiri. I hope that hand feels better. But yeah, wearing gloves when you're dealing with, I've seen spiders in our hay that we mulch with. So definitely that is very helpful. And I'm bad about wearing gloves. So I hope everybody has a good evening. We will be back next week with our regular featured forge item. I have a couple things on my list. Not sure which one I'll do.
I think I'll be back. I've got a big event going on, a charity event that I'm helping with, but it's on the earlier end. I'm pretty sure I'll be back.
Yeah, and I'll try to get everything set because we do have a big weekend.
I got a huge weekend of stuff going on, so
I might be working on it tomorrow to try to figure out what to do and release on Friday. The releases Friday on our webpage, and I try to release that on our Facebook page. All those links are in the description below the video if you want to check those out. We didn't do a blog on anything this week just because we were out of town. But we'll figure that out. I will try to get things set for this live show, even though we have another crazy weekend. His 20th college reunion is next weekend, so there's a lot of events with that, and we're in our college.
I'm going to 2 of them. So yeah, we happen to be back in our town where we went to school. So I haven't been to anything else previously because I was always working. So.
And he's doing this whole volunteer.
And I'm volunteering at a really big charity event for the local hospital, which is on a farm. So So I'm excited to do that. So that'll be wrapping up. So I'll be tired, but I think I'll be back
on Carlson Farms, which we have a video on.
Yeah, it's going to be at Carlson Farms.
Yep.
They raise a tremendous amount of money for the Children's Hospital once a year.
Yep.
It's a big deal. So.
Anyway, I'm going to say goodnight because I'm about to fall asleep sitting here. I will talk to you guys next week, and we'll get a bunch of videos up this week in the meantime. I'll talk to you guys later.
Good night.
Good night.